there, have it up in smoke. And, of course, we're getting ready for the live session here at 104.7 Midday Magazine. And I suppose it's better that we talk with the artists and play other artists' music, but I just thought that was appropriate. It's one of those days of just chilling out and kicking back. And, of course, these two gentlemen are going to be playing dirty music or filthy blues. I don't know what it is.
Something like that, filthy, dirty blues.
For the listening audience out there, gentlemen, could you explain your names and what you're doing?
Sure. So I'm Victor Cripes, more or less from Melbourne, and on a national tour at the moment, going just all up and down the East Coast, all the way to Brisbane and a little further, and then back again. And I'm here with my manager, Saul, who's hooked up a bunch of the shows. And he doesn't have to be here, but he's here at on his own time, enjoying himself.
Having a great time. I've picked up the moniker of the Chosen Bum, been travelling around the country, living in a hammock for a few years now. And I was writing poetry before I met this blues musician and thought, this is a great juncture. This will be a good chapter. This is
a dynamic duo then. This is unreal. You guys must absolutely jam out, talking and laughing and experiencing Australia, but also getting great feedback from some of the audiences.
We're both travellers. There's no office, there's no studio, there's not even a house, man. It's just tripping about and coming to places like this. Doing a few local radios, a bunch of shows, a bunch of busking on the street, and just getting about doing the music thing as much as we possibly can. Is the idea.
I think live music is so important, and unfortunately, there's a big controversial issue in reference to live music in Sydney, because the Sydney music scene, unfortunately, it's not what it used to be.
Lockout laws, oh dear.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas Melbourne's still got a very happening live scene. And I hear on the grapevine from people like Blues Arcade and other bands that Brisbane's really coming up with live music. So unfortunately, there's a bit of a void there. But hey, we've got places like Taree, and there's Bellingen and Byron and all these other places.
A lot of places really receptive. Like there was a few shows in Sydney. But I don't know. Sydney's not my fave, honestly. I love coming out to these kind of places where it's just a lot more chill and I can park my car without having to pay $20 for it, etc. Really do like these kind of places.
You're going to really like the area around Flow Bar, because that's a pretty cool and chilled out area down there.
Yeah, nice. I have been to Old Bar before, but as a completely different thing. I was a bush regenerator working in the rehabilitating the sand dunes down there a few years ago. I've never been to Flow Bar itself. Interesting.
And now we're staying in the bush, and we had Wagyu steak with blue cheese last night and woke up in a hammock to the serene forest. Life's good.
Cooked on a log fire, Alex.
We're talking with Victor Cripes and his manager, and of course, on the road again. That was, what was it? Willie Nelson on the road again. So
he'd be proud of us, I think, with old Willie. I think he'd approve.
Yeah, that's a really cool way to do it, though. It's a very natural way of doing it. Not many people in the city actually experience the Aussie bush, and they're a bit frightened of the bush.
What a shame I'm frightened of the city.
I think the people in the city are a bit frightened of Aussies.
That's touche.
No, good to get out there and meet people, It's such a generous country across the board.
Yeah, look, unfortunately with our modern world, sometimes you get a little bit disillusioned with all the negative stuff you hear and see. But, of course, sometimes when you get out into the backwaters, you actually meet some really fine people.
No doubt. And things are difficult and complicated, and people are dichotomous. You realise that maybe they might have views that aren't so progressive, but that doesn't affect their character. They can still be kind, generous-hearted people. And it's nice to just reassure yourself of the world's welcoming. The world's a good place to be in.
I can see that your poetry must be quite deep and meaningful, because if you write as well as you speak, you're doing real well. But you're right. You're right. You're 100% right. Sometimes you meet somebody just randomly. You might not ever see them again. You go, that was a great conversation. Wow, that's really cool.
There's something about the anonymity of passing through a town and the transience that affords an honesty. So you get these small glimpses. I hitch a lot, before I started travelling in the van with Victor. And it'll be almost like a confession booth in that car. And you'll have people telling stories that they haven't told in 10, 20 years that their partners don't know. But you got the benefit of never seeing them again in about 20 minutes. It's
that's a very valid point. That's a valid point, isn't it? Yeah, I suppose the ABC's got that Squinters show, that anonymity, I suppose, in some ways and these other things where there's a taxi driver in the States, I think in New York, where random people get in and they talk, and can you guess this and do that, and you're right. You can share things. I suppose people do share things that they might not share with their partners or their family.
No doubt. And then I take all that and I put it in poems.
Well, I suppose they say that art or artists, so music, painting, all these different types of art and the different mediums, it's a reflection of the current society, isn't it? So you look back 100 or 200 years ago and you can see a reflection of where society was at. So I suppose poetry is one of those ways, isn't it?
Yeah, no doubt. And I think that like a lot of people have perceptions of what they think the world might be, and maybe that comes from their feed or from the media they consume. But to just be literally in the world, sleeping in parks, sleeping in a hammock, traveling about on foot, you get a really first-hand accounting of this is what the world actually is. And it's nice to have some kind of vague authority. And maybe as the chosen bum, it's the only authority I have.
So before we start off, I'm looking at an incredible setup here that's all set up on a trolley.
So this is my busking rig. It's a very visual thing, which sucks for the radio. But hopefully, I mean, you got some video of it. Hopefully, people will be able to look it up.
Well, what I'm going to try and do is edit it down. We'll try and get some frames. If I can't get the frames, I'll get stills at least, and maybe some footage, but at least some stills onto the 2Bob Facebook page.
If anyone's really keen, they can just hit up my website right now.
There you go.
VictorCripesmusic.com, and then you can see what we're talking about and not just hear it.
So it's visual radio. If you go to Victor Cripes,
Visual radio.
visual radio with Victor Cripes.
Media world.
VictorCripes.com.
VictorCripes.com.
There you go. There you go.
It's VictorCripesmusic.com.
Sorry, VictorCripesmusic.com. So if you jump on that, you can actually see what you're listening to.
Hey, I'm the only Victor Cripes, so you can just stick that in any search and
There
it'll
you
come
go.
up. No worries.
The one and only.
But in the meantime, you have the good part of being able to listen to Mr. Cripes.
yeah. Oh, that's well worth it. That's what it's all about. Just wouldn't want people to miss out on this glorious visuals here. Amplifier with teeth.
Man, I'll tell you what, I've seen some stuff on the wall, but this is pretty cool.
Excellent. I'm glad it's working on you, mate.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And what about the, it's not a guitar, is it?
Okay, so I'm playing a cigar box guitar. 3 strings made in the States by an old man in Texas. It's his retirement plan to make these guitars. Does it all from his shed. I don't know if that works for him as a retirement plan, but it sure works for me.
That's an amazing story just in the instrument, isn't it?
Oh, man, these instruments are so much fun. I've been playing guitar for forever, but as soon as I found cigar box guitars, it was very freeing, liberating. I didn't have to think of scales. I didn't know any chords. I've been playing this for years and still don't know any chords. That's the fun bit, is it's free flow. I get to forget about everything that I learned and just play the thing. It's really
So
nice.
have you got a musical background at all? What's the story?
Yeah, I've been playing since I was very young, writing songs since I was about 7 years old, something like that. Always did poetry and that as a kid, and it all developed into a songwriting thing. But yeah, I don't know where that came from. None of my family much are too musical or arty or anything.
So you guys obviously are able to maybe cross-pollinate or, with poetry and music and this sort of thing? Or
Yeah,
not?
we did a gig in Nimbin that we had planned, and turned out the better gig was at the Indigenous Community Centre, and they were having a jam down there. And that was great. Some really good talent down there. And when Victor was playing, I jumped up on the microphone and pretended I could sing.
Yeah, I suppose it's interesting. You get to a point in your musical career, or your poetry and your writing, that you go, I'm feeling a bit stagnant. And then all of a sudden you get a spark from somebody else. And you go, I had to do that.
Yeah,
Why did you say that? Why did you string that together? That's how you do it, right? And then you can go off and get inspired and try a few new things.
Yeah, very true.
And so this is a one-man band setup. That's the whole point, is that it can be independent, and it's charging off my vehicle while I'm driving around. And so we're all battery powered.
Is this off battery?
We're running on batteries right now, and we'll be for the whole thing.
Wow.
Inside this box, which no one can see, but maybe you can hear me tapping my wood box, there's a battery in there, a big deep cycle caravan battery.
Wow.
Hence the busking thing, because there's no power available. That was part of the deal. Yeah.
That's smart.
And so, yeah, it's great to be able to bounce off people like Saul, who's got a lot to say, a lot of good words, and a lot of good inspiration. A lot of sparks happen when we get together. And when you're a one-man band, it can get a little lonely.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Same on my end. I feel the same way. How sweet of you. How sweet of you.
Oh, sweethearts, let's play some dirty blues.
So we're live Midday Magazine with Cam and the guys, and of course this is Dirty Blues.
Light 'em up, Cripes.
All right. So let me get my levels here for 1 second. Check. Oh, he's pretty good at it. He's already done it, though.
And of course the levels come back up again because I've had to turn them right down. But
Not surprised.
what was that one called?
That's called You'd Better Get Your Skates On, Sunshine Blues.
Man, that rocks.
Good, that's my little...
Yeah, no, that rocks. That's pretty good. That's a good opener. You got me.
Good, that was the idea.
We've got listening audience out there, and if they're not listening in the car or at home, they're listening here at 2 Bob. I've got people actually glued to the speakers out there.
Oh, good. I like that. I'm sure they don't need to hear it through the walls.
Yeah. Well, I went out before just to double check to make sure the audio quality was all right, and the 2 Bob engineer was saying it's not bad at all.
Ideal.
And then one of our other people here, Rosie just had a look and said, "Wow!" I said, "It's a deep cycle battery. Get a load." She goes, "That is cool." I said, "Look out for the teeth, though."
Yeah, well, the teeth are not powered, you see.
No, it's a really cool setup,
Cool.
and the sound's good.
Thanks,
Really
man.
good.
Should we do another?
Yeah, that'd be really, really good.
Great, let's do it.
Do we get an idea beforehand? Any history behind this one?
There is. This is an old traditional... Can you hear me?
Yeah.
It's an old traditional blues song. This is a Willie Dixon. Just to prove that we do actually play blues and it's not always garage thing. Right.
Could be a spoonful of coffee, and it could be a spoonful of tea. Just one spoon of that precious love. Is that enough for me? So many lies about it. So many cries about it. Could be a spoonful of water, save you from the desert sand. A spoon of love from my 45, save you from another man. So many lies about it, so many cries about it. my precious love. Honey, before I get too old, some man lies about it, some man cries about it, some man dies about it. You're fighting about the spoonful, the spoonful, that spoonful, that spoonful, this spoonful, that spoonful, spoonful, that spoonful, that spoonful, Spoonful, Willie Dixon.
Such a pleasure to play that song. Thanks, Willie.
I'm going to have to stay away from the mic because I'm trying to engineer here. But I tell you what, that has got so much behind it. And this is the thing with the Blues Show here. We come across music where sometimes it goes way, way back, and then people are inspired by a particular artist. Are there particular artists that inspire you?
Yeah, there's plenty, of course. I really, really dig 60s, 70s psychedelic blues rock from Britain. Is that specific enough?
Yeah.
So all my favourites are like Pink Floyd, Cream, Led Zepp, early Fleetwood Mac with Peter Green, you know. And I basically try to play that music as a one-man band. And I know that's absolutely unachievable, and I really enjoy trying to get there anyway.
Well, I think you pretty much carry it off because having this setup, it's not just an artist with we're getting. That's all right. I don't know.
We've got some feedback going. It's not me.
We've got actually a program called Feedback Loop where we don't know. At the moment.
We'll have to hit him up. We'll be good at it.
But that's the thing, isn't it? You know, with the Blues Show, we tend to find that sometimes there are influences, and sometimes even the guys from the 60s, or girls and guys from the 60s, they've got influences that even go back even further, back into the 30s or 20s.
Sure.
I might just move that mic. We've got aliens in the studio.
Yeah. They're coming for us. They dig the tunes. It might be this, you know. I wonder if it's...
We've got it all sorted, I think. It only happens when I talk.
Yeah, it must be you. There you go. Oh.
Yeah, so that's interesting, the influences you've got there from the 60s and 70s.
Mm.
What about, not just music though, what about writers? Are there any writers maybe for you guys? Because you're both into poetry
Sure.
and writing and Saul.
Oh, you know, I'm a big fan of Albert Camus. Yeah, I think that it's kind of maybe even a little stereotypical that a young man is born into nihilism. And I was that same way, and then Camus showed me the way outside of nihilism through absurdism. And of course, Walt Whitman. And there are Aussies doing it. Benjamin Wild, a good friend of mine, is a super gifted poet. There's so much inspiration. There's so many good people to draw from, yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's you with that speaker behind you.
You haven't got dead air, we've just got gremlins in our...
Yeah, and there's a few gremlins.
I moved that before, maybe I'll bring that back down.
Oh yeah, no, that whatever that is, that fixes it.
Is that better?
That's even
there
better.
we go, we've got it working. The sound engineer just ran in and ran out, so it's all good.
Took one look at my busking rig and didn't want anything to do with it.
For the listening audience who's just tuned in, this is Midday Magazine with Cam, Saul and Victor, and of course Victor's got a deep cycle battery behind there. One of our staff went, no. I said, yep.
Oh yeah.
So this is
get
all...
about at max volume, I get about 4.5 hours, which is far more than I could do this for.
Yeah.
As you've seen, it's quite energetic.
It is. It's something that a lot of musicians don't really appreciate, having to have everything on a trolley.
Yeah, well, it's only problem solving for me, really. I go out on the train out to the city, go busking with everything all stacked up on this box trolley.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Right.
It's only just manageable. It's very heavy. But yeah, you know, it's the part of the design was that it had to be independent. I wanted to be able to play anywhere. This is not just a busking rig. This is a play anywhere rig.
It's interesting because we tend to be judgmental as human beings, and of course you're travelling on the metro somewhere in Melbourne maybe, and you see this crazy looking dude with this setup and you go, oh dear, you know, because that's a judgmental thing that most people that live in urban cul-de-sac bliss, probably in brick venereal diseased homes, you know, but you know, they're there going, oh. But for the listening audience out there, when you play some of this music, like that last track, it really has got a beat to it. You really, do people get up and dance? They must.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Busking is a strange game. Because the general public, it's hard to know exactly what they want. And often people who don't like it walk past. You know, that's standard for busking. But I do definitely get a lot of interest, a lot of engagement. People are happy to get up and dance, happy to come and chat with me and all that sort of stuff.
That's a unique signature though, isn't it, being a busker? Because as a professional musician, it's a nice signature because not everybody's a busker. They don't say, well, I'm a busker.
Right, yeah.
So
it was only ever problem solving for me.
You can still be a professional musician though as a busker.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Surely you should be able to just play anywhere.
Busker doesn't mean you're an amateur.
Yeah.
Especially when you're coming from Melbourne, the calibre of buskers in Melbourne's really high.
That's
even
really
getting
true,
that busking licence can be quite difficult.
Well, you mentioned, I think, on the site that I read out before about the mall.
Yeah, there's the Bourke Street Mall. That's well, honestly, that's one of the best strips in Australia. Just because the amount of traffic that goes through and the foot traffic.
The discerning taste of the
closed.
affluent purchaser that's walking past.
Yeah, sure. But because it's all closed to the traffic, that strip, and so there's just lots of room for buskers. But of course, it's a fairly high profile place. So it's all organised strictly by the council, and there's all kinds of auditions and blah blah blahs to get in there, which is fair enough, I suppose. There's plenty of other places to go and busk if you don't want to do the auditions.
Mm-hmm.
And
we need that sound engineer back again.
Yeah, we do. Hey, where's he gone? But yeah, so busking, I think a lot of people who are playing ought to go and do that. It's tricky. I think it gives you a thick skin. You got to bring your own momentum.
But isn't that one of the biggest issues for an artist? I remember talking to Tim Rogers, I think originally from you and I, and I said to him, I've noticed you've got an alter ego on stage. Is that to protect yourself? And he basically said, yeah, it's, you know, I'm exposing myself and I find it more comfortable to do it this way.
Sure.
And I think it's one of the hardest things as an artist because you're exposing yourself to criticism. I don't know why this thing is doing. Is that better? Yeah, that's better.
Oh, that seems better. Yeah.
There you go, that's better. It was all me, I told you it was. But yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? You expose yourself with the work that you do, whether you're a writer or whether you're a musician.
Sure.
And when you get that positive feedback, it's better than $1,000 or $1 million, you know. It's
absolutely.
And then you go, I'm exposing myself here. What's the feedback going to be? And then you get some negative because it's not what they want to hear or see.
Yeah, I think people don't want to get up and give you negative feedback. It does happen, of course. There are some critical bastards around, but for the most part, people just ignore you and just don't give you anything if they don't like it. And
well, that's
goes the other way as well. When people do like it, they're happy to chat with you and they offer you all kinds of things, including buying the CD and wanting to stay in touch and they get a lot of offers for people saying, oh, you should come and play at this venue and all sorts of things when you're busking. There's something every time and you never know what it's going to be, who's going to turn up. It's part of the fun. That's the little bit of the mystery of it.
Yeah, most definitely. That's the excitement.
I might invite one of the boys in to work out the engineering. Can you guys come in? I've got a problem with the feedback. That's okay. You can talk. We've got our Chris. How are you? Chris, you can talk. It's okay. You can talk.
Pull back the volume a bit.
Pull it back. Pull it back
All
down.
the microphones, yeah.
Jeez, Victor's too loud. He's blowing up the station.
But it was only when we were talking.
I'll monitor it outside.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Well done, Chris. That's a lot better.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. So the listening audience out there, and Flowbar, and Victor, and Saul, and myself, all thank Chris.
That's it. Do not adjust your sets.
And stay tuned to this dial. Don't change the dial. Maybe you guys could do a station ident for us.
Oh,
Who you are and who we are. It's 104.7 FM,
Oh, yeah.
2 Bob Radio. So
Absolutely.
Well, we've got Victor Cripes and the Chosen Bum doing a national tour right now, and we're here at
104.7 2 Bob Radio in Taree.
Yeah, that's pretty good, guys.
Pretty,
Yeah,
that's all off the cuff and that as well. No prompting needed.
We'll be able to take that out of the logger, hopefully, and use it as a station ident.
Good. Shall we? I'm feeling like I want to play another tune. Should we do another
He's
tune?
warm. Let him go again.
Yeah.
Let him go again.
Yeah.
You got songs for radio?
Yeah, man, I do actually. Thanks.
While
I'm gonna-
Victor's working out how to get it all together now to play this next track, I'll tell you what, he's going to be live 6:30 to 8:30 at Flowbar tonight. You've got to get down there. This guy actually rocks. The two of them. Characters, there aren't many Aussie characters out there. These guys are true Aussie characters, and I would say talent. And
well done. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Let's hope everyone agrees tonight. No, it's going to be really fun. It's 2 sets on from 6:30 at Flowbar.
That'd be perfect. Great.
And I heard great things about the pizzas down there too.
Is that right? Good company, good food, good music.
Absolutely. So I have this radio hit single that I wrote. It's not been recorded yet, so it's not actually been on the radio at all. In fact, this might be the radio debut for my radio.
This
hit
is a
single.
radio debut.
The
Here we
reason
go.
I say it's a radio hit is because it's exactly 2 minutes long.
It's not bubblegum music.
We'll see about that. Cool. So this is called Rat Bag. All right.
Rat bag in a redneck town. Nobody wanna pick you up. All the people trying to drag you down. I tell you something that'll bring you up. My lover got a perfect heart. She got the ways of a strange sensation. She drag down from the start. Wanna know what that says about me? Drag down from the start she was. Drag down from the start. Hey! Rat bag in a redneck town. Nobody wanna pick you up. All the people trying to drag you down. I tell you something that'll bring you up. My lover got a perfect heart. She got the ways of a strange sensation. She would drag down from the start. I wanna know what that says about me. Drag down from the start she was. Drag down from the start. Hey! Bang on 2 minutes.
Perfect. Perfect.
Perfect.
Well, that actually was a debut.
Mm.
So it was the first in Australia.
Yeah, first time in Australia, yeah. One day when I record it, I'll send it to you, no worries.
Yeah, no, all the music is great. I can see actually there must be people that get up and dance for sure. You know,
No doubt about it.
Yeah, there's always a couple at least, eh?
yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty danceable for the most part.
So what are your plans after this weekend? You're going to be heading south again, is that right?
Probably go somewhere and find some nice trees for a hammock, find another good spot for a fire, find some good people to have some yarns with.
Yeah.
All the usual things. Life rolls on.
It's a shame. I have to put the word out there. If you're listening out there, Tony, we'll have to talk after the show. But anyway, it's all good.
There's another show. So we've got Flow Bar this weekend, and then next weekend there's Coffs Harbour Element Bar.
Yep.
Oh, is that right?
And in the meantime, we'll be doing the office in the bush.
Swinging in the trees.
Yeah. Office in the bush. I'll be bush repairing my car, which needs a new universal joint.
Oh, no
We
way.
got a request for a concert at the campsite this morning. So
Yeah,
maybe we'll do a little
that.
impromptu gig down
Hang
there.
on, where did you guys stay?
Kubernook in the forest last
Get
night.
out of town.
True story.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
And they're all there
It's a
with
nice
their
joint.
big fancy camper vans, and we're there with our not fancy camper van, feeling
that
real
right?
true blue. Yeah.
Unreal. Yeah, well, for the listening audience out there, the Winnebago only just got into the park.
That's our epic tour coach, eh? We've got staff in there and everything, waiting on our every needs.
I noticed the 4 people lugging in.
Chef's making us lunch right now out there. At the
Oh,
van.
nice. Oh, that must be interesting. So you've stayed locally, literally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No reason why not. Yeah.
What was it last night? We slept at the in the sand dunes in Byron. We did a couple of nights there. The night before, the open air cathedral in Bexley Hill. Night before on a river somewhere. Yeah. It's nice to be doing the juxtaposition of in the city, express, create, and then in the bush to reflect on that. That's the way to do it. Introspection and then outward.
We're talking at the moment with Victor and Saul being the writer in reference to poetry. There's a guy called Les Murray who was an Australian poet who lived down the road from here, who passed away this year. And he said the divide between, this is going back 18 or 19 years ago when I was speaking with him, I brought up something he said on national television in reference to the gap between the bush and the city. He said it's getting wider and wider and wider.
Sure.
And I think worldwide now we're about 51% of our global population live in cities. So that being the case, people in the city are becoming more ostracised or more divorced from that natural environment.
Yeah, very true. There's rumours of a guy, the last swagman he calls himself, that gets around the country doing bush poetry in pubs. And people often ask, like, do you write bush poetry? So, well, I write it in the bush, if that counts.
Good comeback. Yeah, I suppose in the old days, I'm talking about the old days, we're talking hundreds of years ago, roaming minstrels and people that actually would write and talk and entertain on the road. And
Absolutely.
that's how knowledge got transferred, I suppose.
Yeah, and it's not that dissimilar what we're doing. I really enjoy that aspect of it, actually. You know, there's no record labels, there's no one that needs to help us out with anything in particular. You know, mostly it's sorted, of course, trying to build it and get further. But if you do that on your own 2 feet, then you build a solid foundation, and it's not just at everyone else's whims. You know, there's no funding goes into this. It's all just done on the road.
Well, I suppose with modern technology too, you can keep abreast of what's happening because
Exactly.
you're hooked up and wired up 24/7.
And we have this beautiful busking rig so we can watch movies all night in the van there. We just keep
nice
everything
one.
charged.
That's not just a busking rig; it's a charging station as well. Eh?
Wow. Yeah, it's certainly a unique setup. As I said to you, the closest I've ever seen to people actually busking with, but it's not a rig like this, is over in Paris on the metro.
Sure.
And people would get on with a little trolley and an amp. Their amp doesn't have a deep cycle battery, but they don't have the whole...
Well, you know, this is not absolutely unprecedented. Of course, there are people, a few of my good friends have their own one-man band show, and they get around busking, battery-powered and things. But I do feel like the difference with what I'm doing is that what we're doing, the show in the station here and the show on the street, the show that'll be tonight at Flow Bar, that's all the same stuff. It's the same rig. There's no difference. It's just the same show without having to, you know, we don't ham it up for the stage or anything like that. And that's the beauty of it. You know, you don't have to do some minimal show so that you can go on the street. It's all just, it works across the board.
So you can take this into the mall, for example, down in Melbourne, or you can take it onto a stage with an audience of 100 or 500 people.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
And hopefully maybe even more.
Well, if it's only got a capacity of 500, there's another 500 outside trying to get in.
Exactly. We'll just book 2 nights in a row and then they can all
There
sit.
you go. There you go. No problems in life, just some challenges that need effective solutions.
Exactly, yeah. I do hope that that my problem solving is useful for other people too, you know. That's really what a lot of this is. I wanted to play music. I did a lot of bands. For years I did bands. And they always fell apart. Bands are difficult. It's like being married to 4 blokes. And one's always, I'm doing uni now, or I'm getting married, or whatever, you know. And it always just falls apart. So the idea is, right, I'm going to do it all myself. We don't need other people to rely on. And it is good working with other people, of course, but just that there's one show that's solid, and it's I only have to just do it myself.
I suppose being confident, that's one of the things. Confident in your own ability, confident in your writing ability, confident that you can entertain people.
Absolutely. A little bit desperate too, maybe.
Well, I suppose the only time that you're desperate is if you're short of cash or short of inspiration. If you get into a writer's block as an artist, that's one of the worst things that can happen, I think.
Or short of cigarettes.
There you go. There's the other short.
Yeah, it feels like a lot of artistry nowadays is so aesthetic based, you know, and it's about branding, and we're trying to live a good life, and the art is incidental to that. So set a tone, set a wave, and maybe vagabonding's coming back, and hopefully we can be some kind of inspiration of how to really be the legend that we say we are. You know?
I think one of the beauties of what you're doing, though, is it's the road less travel that's more interesting.
Yeah.
It might be harder at times, but look at the joys and rewards sometimes of it.
Yeah, and so many of, like if you've got a traditional life, your stresses are a boss riding you too hard or some bills you don't want to pay. My stresses are it was really cold in the hammock last night, you know. It was a bit of a walk to the toilet this morning. So you pick up the mantle of your own stresses and you go like, well, if this is suffering I chose. And it's very easy to dig into it then. You have a resolve and a grit and a determination to transcend it.
Right, well said, yeah, true.
Well, I suppose Sir Francis of Assisi and all these people that did like hundreds and hundreds of miles they walked, and they travelled the roads, and it's all part of life. It is difficult though in this time of year with winter. I don't know what's happening here.
They're not plugged in neither.
Yeah. Might be me being too close. I'll stand back a bit. Is that better? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But look, we're going to be coming up to the news, unfortunately. So just very quickly, I'm not rounding up, but I'll turn these levels down. There we go. That's a bit better. You're playing 6:30. This is Victor Cripes, and Victor is with Saul, and Victor's playing at Flow Bar 6:30 to 8:30 tonight.
That's it.
The other thing, going back to being on the road, it is difficult, but look at all the joys and the blessings we've got. I did 6 weeks in a hammock up at Brisbane.
Nice.
Yeah, just on the edge of Moreton Bay.
Lovely.
And there were times when I thought, have I lost the plot?
Yeah.
Because I'm not living in a house.
Yeah.
I'm not part of the mainstream. I'm not part of the norm. But there were people saying, I'd love to have the ability to do what you're doing.
It's funny, huh? Yeah.
And it sets an example that you can actually follow your dream. It might be whatever you want to do.
Sure.
Because that's what you're doing. You're following the dream and doing whatever you're doing.
The dream of not doing much. That's the dream.
And then when you do things, it's the things that you wanted to do.
Yeah, that's a valid point, isn't it? Chilling out. That's the Aussie thing. I found that overseas.
Sure.
You Aussies have really got a great attitude. Like, she'll be right, mate. A couple of days, we'll do it tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, if it's not urgent, it's not a bushfire, and
well, yeah, not in danger. No.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the beauty of the bush, isn't it? And sometimes some of the locations you would go to, they'd be absolutely pristine and magnificent.
Sure. Yeah, we've gone to a lot of really beautiful places. Well, Australia's full of them, especially on this coastal trip. So many beautiful beaches and nice little cute towns and rolling hills and.
Oh yeah, it's a beautiful country you have. That's what the patriotism
Sure
is.
is.
It's not a Southern Cross having never left Logan Lee. It's about the trees supporting you and the stars being your night sky. It's a beautiful place that we live.
Guys, got to wrap it up. Thank you so much for coming into 104.7.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you.
Time for the news right here on 2Bob 104.7.
Radio News.